G'day. Probably mostly on the way home from work, but so maybe not be the best time, but I really felt I had to jump on and just talk a little bit about the proposed wealth tax and why I do not think a wealth tax will work. A disclaimer, it wouldn't catch me. My net worth is way under $2 million, so I'm not concerned about having to pay any tax in it. But my problem with wealth tax is it disincentivises people from working hard. And then when you disincentivise people from working hard, then the production of the whole country reduces. And when that reduces, that means there's less money in the pot to go round. And I think that is the effective wealth tax that's been witnessed by those countries that have tried it. It hasn't actually paid off. And that is the reason why. Because if you say to people, it doesn't matter if you work hard or not, you're still going to get a reasonable amount of money, then people just don't bother working hard because they think, well, I'll work hard and he doesn't. And if he doesn't, he gets the same. Why should I even bother? So it disincentivises effort. Now, it is actually a socialist type thing, and the problem with socialism is it doesn't actually work. It doesn't lift the wealthy, it doesn't lift the poor up to the middle class. It simply eliminates the middle class. And there's heaps of examples of it. Cambodia is a great one. That was probably a wee bit extreme, but you know, Pol Pot's thing of everyone will have the same, so you're all going to have your same bit of ground with your same rice paddy, and everyone will be happy. Didn't work because he basically made everyone absolutely poor. Poverty struck the whole place as well as being brutal. But it's actually a bigger thing than that, because what you want to do, if you want to make society successful, you need to incentivise hard work and reward people for their efforts. Because when you do that, it's holding a standard up for people to look at and go, wow, I want to achieve more, so I'll work harder so I can gain more. And then as more is gained, the whole population is better off because more tax comes in and there's more money. The problem New Zealand's got at the moment is that we're actually wasting too much money on silly things. So, you know, the government's bloated the bureaucracy and wasting massive amounts of money on things that don't work. Where we want the actual inverse. We want to do things that do work, be careful with our money, and then actually use our natural resources, which is the other thing New Zealand doesn't do. You know, we do mine some coal, but we import a whole lot of coal. We have stopped exploration for gas and oil. We're making it harder for farmers to farm. So we're not using our natural resources and we're importing them from overseas, and that brings in less money for New Zealand. We're spending more money offshore. Closing down Marsden Point is an example of that, where we have to ship a whole lot more refined product in, because when we bought crude oil, and it's a much denser form, so you need less ships to bring in the same amount of fuel, because it got refined here. So we had jobs here, we had a refinery here, we had continuity of access to fuel because the refinery was here, so we had big stockpiles of it, whereas now we're reliant on it coming in. And there's a whole lot of other negatives with closing Marsden Point. Again, that was the government that allowed that to happen. They could have vetoed it, chose not to. So it's poor decisions with unintended consequences that is making it harder for New Zealand to succeed. Whether it be mandating on a vaccine that didn't actually work, which removed health workers and school teachers out of the system, whether it's closing down an oil refinery that gave us continuity of supply, provided jobs, etc., whether it's not allowing the dam on the west coast to go forward, which again would have provided jobs and income and was approved by the environment courts, and then that means we've got less power, which means that we're subsidising our hydro and geothermal with burning coal, which doesn't help the environment. So the reason New Zealand isn't doing better is a consequence of a whole lot of little decisions, and to say we're just going to tax the rich more and that'll solve it and end poverty is naive at best and misleading at worst, because one, you're not going to generate any more. You're going to make it harder and more difficult for people to actually go hard to make money. They won't be incentivised to do it. But two, you're not addressing the real issues of the poverty, which is a lot of poor government legislation and not thinking out the consequences of their decisions and not dealing with the real issues. And when you don't do that, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, you won't solve the problem. And that's not even getting to the fact that you cannot eliminate poverty. You'll never eliminate poverty unless you eliminate choice. Because some people just make really bad choices. That's just how some people operate. So you give people choice, absolutely. You provide an environment where if people really want to succeed, they can. You use your natural resources. You're very careful on your spending. You give more autonomy to the regions because they'll spend their own money more carefully, and you can have a thriving economy. But simply saying you were going to increase tax and the country will be wealthier is naive, and it doesn't work. And it will not work in this instance either. New Zealanders need to be encouraged and incentivised for working hard. We need to provide an environment where if people want to succeed, they can. an environment where people, if they just want to do a 9 to 5 and grunt it out, that's okay. We need those people too. But we also need to make it that if you haven't got work or employment, then you need to do something for the money you get, so that you understand there's a correlation between effort and reward. Just giving people money for doing nothing, except in extreme circumstances like health issues and stuff like that, disabilities. But if someone's fit and able to work, they should do something for the money they get to teach them reward for effort and make them feel part of the solution, rather than just think that they have rights to everything without putting effort in. So there's a combination of factors, but the wealth tax will not work at full stop. And I don't think it has worked anywhere really, because it's ideological and not sensible. And I'll just finish off by saying socialism doesn't actually work. It simply drives the middle class down to the level of the poor, and then the poor have got the same as the middle class, but it's not an improvement in their life. You know, the effect we see of people being rewarded for effort in the Western world is growing economies. The poor in New Zealand are way better off than the poor in Cambodia or the poor in a whole lot of those other countries, because there is wealth in New Zealand, and it's been generated by allowing people to succeed. I know the trickle-down effect doesn't always work when people do well, and we've got to watch out for things like crony capitalism. We also have to teach people to be generous and kind. I mean, that's important, but the biggest thing is actually provide an environment where people can succeed. And again, it comes down to governance. Do you want a top-down government that tells you everything you have to do, or do you want a government that supports you to achieve your goals and your dreams and your visions? And that is really going to be the choice this election, really. Which government system is actually going to work for us as New Zealanders? Anyway, I just want to jump on and give my 10 cents worth. Monday night, people are getting home from work, cook a feed, etc. So go for it, enjoy it. But when you're discussing things like this with your friends, your neighbours, think about what is the unintended consequence of this decision. What are the other flow-on effects from it? Because all that looks rosy on the outside not necessarily are going to do the job. So think carefully, and I think the one thing that we have in common is we want people to have enough to live on, to be warm and comfortable, and children to be well looked after. We agree with that. We actually have to look at what are the real causes of poverty, what are the underlying factors, what are the common denominators, and address those issues. Because I would say poverty is not necessarily just that you haven't got a massive amount of money coming in each week. Yeah, that's a part to play. But if people have addictions and drug addictions, if there's family violence, if there's emotional harm, then money doesn't fix those issues, and we need to be able to deal with those at the same time. Anyway, thank you for watching. Christine says, socialism is a step towards communism. Yeah, socialism is the government controls everything. This is basic, but communism is the government owns everything. To be honest, localised community, not centralised government. Yeah, I'd agree with you there, honey. Carl, the best form of welfare is a job. Yeah, because it gives you confidence. You're interacting with other people. Your ability to communicate, you feel rewarded for your effort. You go home and sleep well because you've done a good day's effort. You keep your fitness up. You keep your mental health up. It's not just about money. There's a whole lot more involved in actually going out and working. Anyway, I'll pull off there. I'll jump off. I've got to go and get dinner on myself. But thank you for jumping on and watching, and have good, honest conversations with your friends and relatives. Thank you very much.